All right. So, the othering of America. I wrote down some notes here, even though I don't think I'm going to need them. This is something that has been going on for a long time, and it's definitely not something that is specific to America, right? The title just sounded good, The Othering of America. But in reality, it's something that humans do subconsciously. It's in our nature to do this, and for better or worse. That's the other thing. When I give these examples, I'm not saying that I think they're right or I think they're wrong. I'm just going to point to a couple points in history where there's been some othering going on, right? So, othering simply means treating fellow citizens or individuals as outsiders or enemies. And when you think about it, like from an evolutionary point of view, it makes complete sense. Like our brains are wired this way for survival. So it's kind of a little bit like leftover wiring. We haven't evolved enough to no longer have this way of thinking, but needless to say, it's still there. And let's just go back, say like caveman days, it was used to quickly identify others, meaning people that were not inside of your tribe, right? You know, walk through the jungle, hacking and slashing, whatever, you come up over a ridge and there's another person standing there, and your brain needed to instantly recognize if that person was one of the people in your small, whatever, 10 to 20 person tribe. Instantly. Boom. Oh, that's Bob. Or, ugh, I don't know that person, right? Because it was a violent time back then, right? And a lot of times when you would run into an other, the outcome wasn't great. Like, we didn't have civilized society back then. So if you had something that other person wanted, they could try to take it from you. They could try to kill you. They could try to murder you. They could try to follow you back to wherever the tribe is and take all that stuff and raid you. And horrible stuff happened, right? And so our brains have evolved to make that snap judgment very quickly. And it doesn't really, I would say, I don't want to say that it's no longer needed in society, because I think it is. Like, your gut feeling definitely tells you something, but the smarter way we need to approach it is just realizing that our brain does it, you know? So then when you get heated and you're pointing the finger at somebody else and you're blaming everything on somebody else, it's important to stop and say, you know, am I othering this person? Or do I have a point here? Or is it somewhere in the middle? You know? Because sometimes other people do things that are not good, and you should be able to point out that those actions and the fact that they're not like you should be irrelevant. Because it's like, well, just because they do something and I don't do that, doesn't mean I just have to respect it and be like, oh, okay, yeah, cool. Like, you murder babies or you hang people from trees. Oh, yeah, well, that's you. You do you. No, it's like, wrong is still wrong, you know? But having the ability to point it out to yourself and kind of run it through that filter first makes a difference. So this has happened to every kind of group in America, I'll say, but in the world, right? People have been othered, I'll say, for racial reasons, religious reasons, political, economical, class, everything like that, right? Every reason that somebody is different from another group has been used to make that divide. It's just the way it is. Let's think like, let's go slavery, right? I mean, that's like probably one of the things that people think of right away. So there's slavery. And then along the way, so we go, okay, so let's think of it this way. All right, so slavery. In order to own slaves, the slave owners had to look at the other people, the slaves, as less than, and not human, animals, all these terms. We'll get into terminology here in a little bit. So immediately the slave owners buying the slaves looked at the slaves as others. But the tribe that ran around and caught all of those slaves, they had their reasons for thinking those slaves, that other tribe, deserved to be rounded up, caught, and sold into slavery. So it's like you just go back probably to the end of the beginning of time and find the others of the groups, right? Native Americans, we dehumanized them. We called them savages because they were different. They didn't have the technology that we did, and they looked different, and all that stuff. So it was a lot back then. It was really easy to look at them and say, "Oh, you're not like us, and in our mind, we're more superior. So you're the others." But it even happened to, white people, like Irish and Italian immigrants. Like they were depicted as criminals, animals. They were like, the butt of jokes in political cartoons and newspapers and stuff like that. They face discrimination, just like colored individuals, Native Americans, all these different races, right? It literally doesn't matter. They were even lynched for their ethnicity and their religion. I think we forget about that sometimes, right? So, Japanese, right? The Japanese during World War II with the internment camps. Excuse me. After Pearl Harbor, we automatically suspected them of being traitors, right? Regardless of evidence. They were the others. And back then, I think it was easier to pick out others because it was usually like the minority, right? There wasn't as many. So it's like, all right, we have the majority. So the minorities, they must be the others. But then like McCarthyism and the Red Scare, that whole communist. You had neighbors pointing the fingers at other neighbors saying, I think they're communists, with like no evidence, and people were losing their jobs just for having the word communist pointed in their direction, right? I mean, shit. Post 9/11, just Islamophobia, whatever you want to call it, the divide there and how we looked at the Islamic religion and area of the world, that was definitely an othering moment for sure. And again, I'm not even going into like, are these justified? Are they not justified? I'm just saying these are countless moments in history where at the time the people felt that they had enough evidence and justification to label another group of people as others and outside of the tribe. I mean, even again, like poor people in geez, still like Appalachian Mountains, Appalachia, or the South, hillbillies, right? White trash. It goes on and on. Like, it just literally goes on and on. I think one of the things that makes this possible is the language that's used. Like when I talked about Native Americans, savages, or slaves being called animals, right? Terminology that makes the people inferior. I think that's like the beginning of the process of othering people. You give them a label, and then you start coming up with terminologies that dehumanize them and make them inferior, and then it's like a sliding scale, right? Because that paves the way for harsher treatment. Like, just let's look at the way we called slaves animals. Well, what do we do to animals? We slaughter them. We eat them. They stay outside. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm not like a vegan or anything, but I'm just saying, like, we tend to treat animals different than we do humans, right? So it's like knocking them a peg down. It's like, all right, well, if we can slaughter animals and we can treat animals bad or whatever and not really worry about their well-being, then why don't we, oh, well, let's just do it to these slaves too. You know? It kind of creates this cycle. And the problem that we're having today is, we're hearing a lot about, oh, we got to cool down the rhetoric. Well, it's like, what are we talking about exactly, the rhetoric? I think the biggest thing is the terminology that we've started to throw around casually is extreme terminology. Even the word extreme. I would love to, if I was a little better at this, I could look up like Google Trends and be like, I want to see when the increase in the word extreme started. You know? Because even the use of extreme has become extreme, you know? Like extreme, the extreme right, the far left, the radical this, the radical that. And it's like, all right. When you throw that label in front of something, I'm expecting something extreme to come after it. And sometimes it doesn't. But when you hear it enough, this is extreme. This is extreme. This is extreme. It starts to sort of like warp what is extreme. You know, before you thought you had a grasp on it, you're like, okay, this is extreme. Shooting somebody, killing, murder, riots. That's extreme. Now you're like, so, like, calling somebody sort of not the right term, but not a hate term either, is extreme rhetoric. I don't know, just Nazi, fascist, racist, bigot, homophobic, transphobic. Good thing this video isn't monetized, because it probably would have been demonetized just for even saying all those words in one fell swoop, you know? And then on the other side, it's, lunatics, radicals, like all this verbiage is redefining things. Like the fact that so many people are being called Nazis, for one thing, that's a very othering way to do it. Because like majority of society, vast majority of society, doesn't think Nazis were good, right? I mean, 9 out of 10 people are like, yeah, fuck Nazis, right? Okay. Well, now maybe you have a group of people that keep calling your neighbor a Nazi. You're like, really? Are they a Nazi? No. They're not in the general sense. But the term is shifting. It's like fluid. It's like it used to mean this, and it used to have a definition, and it used to actually stand for a specific thing. And now it's like a term that gets thrown around way too casual, even though it's an extreme term, to label so many non-extreme things. So then it's like, well, yeah, of course you can get a whole bunch of people to hate Nazis. Really easy to other a group of Nazis, right? But when the term is applied to just like, I don't know, people that aren't Nazis, but maybe just a little bit of a disagreement happens, it can definitely ramp things up. And that's not good, you know? Because like last live stream when I was talking about mental health, you know, America's mental health is not in a good spot. I don't know about the rest of the world, but America's mental health is definitely not in the right spot. So then when you have all of these terms being thrown around, Nazi, racist, you know, a crazy person, they can start believing it. Yeah, those are the others. You're right. Those are the others. Yes. Yeah, those are the others. They're not like me. They're not like us. Those are the others. Let's go get them. You know? And then boom, violence happens. And then the other side, not kind of the others, but the other side is like, what the heck? You know, you did this thing, and it just like the divide continues to grow. And nothing good ever comes of that. Now, again, like we can have this conversation, and I want to have this other conversation too, probably next live stream. I want to talk about the death of nuance, right? And I can't help it. I'm going to get into it a little bit. So, because I think it's like part of the othering of America. I literally just commented on a YouTube video before I jumped on the live stream, and it was actually about the Jimmy Kimmel, right? Like getting let go. And somebody commented on there about how like their whole take was that the joke really wasn't that offensive, and you know, he shouldn't have been let go for that. And my comment was, I don't really think it was about the joke, because it wasn't really that bad. I think it was the subtle disinformation about the shooter being MAGA that probably did it. Nowhere in that statement did I say that I think it should have happened or that I agreed that he got let go. I was just breaking down what happened and which part of this event had more to do with him getting let go. And this person was like, they did this classic thing, said, if that's your take, then you're part of the problem. Like, well, what take did I have? I didn't really have a take. You know, I didn't say that, yeah, I think he should have, or even what he said was wrong. I was just saying, I don't think it really had to do with the joke. I think it had to do more with this. No nuance anymore. Nope. That was like I might as well have like shot flares into the air. I'm one of the others. And that commenter's like, you know, and I'm like, oh my God. Like, chill out. Like, I didn't say I think it should happen. I was just saying, I think it had more to do with, I think it had more to do with his comment about, you know, the political leanings of the shooter that I think probably got him canned, you know? But so anyways, that is what othering is. And both sides of the political aisle right now have absolutely been othering the shit out of each other. It doesn't lead to anything good, you know? Legit, like the Holocaust, Nazis othered the Jews, and they needed to do that in order to treat them the way that they did. They othered them to a point where they could shove them in cattle cars and send them off to a gas chamber. That's how much they othered them, right? So all I urge is, when you get really upset about another group of people because they believe something differently than you, or they look differently than you, or they act differently than you, I'm not saying you're not justified for getting upset. I'm not saying you're not justified for believing whatever you believe, but just try to run it through your filter in your mind and say, is this just old wiring in my brain that is identifying differences and making me draw a line in the sand and not having like a clear head to actually evaluate things. Okay? That's all I ask. That's all anybody can really do. That's all any of us can do. But it's so important. It's so important.